365 Customer Insights webinar. I would be grateful if somebody could give me a few cheeky thumbs up in the chat to say that everybody can hear me. Anybody?
Loud and clear, Andy.
Loud and clear. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for that. That just saves some embarrassment of talking at 5 minutes to myself. So I'm broadcasting today from sunny Manchester, and I'm joined by Donna. Donna, do you want to say hello? Where are you broadcasting from?
Hello, I'm in sunny Fleet in Hampshire.
Wonderful. How is it?
Not so sunny.
Not so sunny. We've got a bit of sun in Manchester, so it's all good. So I've decided to turn the video on because it's nice and bright. So first off, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. We've got about a half an hour for this. Donna's going to be doing, she's one of our senior solution architects in the Dynamics team, specialising in Dynamics and all things Dynamics 365. So we've got some demos for you, which is great to give you a flavour of what we're going to be talking about. And I just thought, first off, I'd do a little bit of an overview, which gives everybody on the call a little bit of an idea of the state of the nation, of why we're talking about this today, why it's becoming incredibly popular, and why our customers are seriously looking at this product and service. So I think starting off with the general theme from the last number of years really is many organizations embarking on a journey of customer centricity. So we kind of take digital transformation that means many things to many people, and we take that onto what many organizations are interpreting that as. It's this idea of building a business and building process flows that completely center wholly around the customer and building brand new customer centric processes. And if you kind of look at many organizations today, certainly some of the ones that have been built in the last 5 to 10 years, massive high profit growth, cloud native businesses, software businesses by default that don't have any of the legacy, they're structured incredibly different than your traditional enterprises. They don't necessarily have the same hierarchical structure. They have very small teams that don't really have distributed business units like HR, finance, sales. Everything's sort of cell based and incredibly quick and really easy to respond. And I think one of the things that we used to talk about before what's happening at the minute is how quick can an organization scale up? And I think what we're seeing now is how quick can an organization actually scale down and react in a way to their customers, to their staff, with everything that's going on at the minute. And I think if we take a look at one of our sort of biggest growth areas as an organization, just as A&S in general over the past couple of years, it's been on building organizations' modern data platforms. So at the heart of digital transformation and customer centricity is, the ability to actually transform the way that the organization uses data, reports on data, and actually allows it to build what is this customer this 360-degree view of the customer, where we take all the different sections of data and we start to build profiles. And with that, the cloud gives us some wonderful capabilities around, modern business intelligence, AI, machine learning, all these kind of wonderful services that have become democratized and commoditized over these last 2 years that allow, in some ways, non-technical users to get amazing value out of the cloud and their data sets. The challenge, though, really, that sort of, and I like to use a bit of Gartner now and again. I mean, some people don't like Gartner, some people do like Gartner, or don't like analysts. I actually, there's loads and loads of value in a lot of the things that Gartner say. And one of the stuff that they talk about is how 2/3, I think for A&S, it's probably more, 2/3 of the marketing time on budget is to retain, grow and acquire new customers. And to do that requires a better understanding of that customer. But sub 10% of organizations have actually managed to build that 360-degree holistic profile. It's a very, very traditionally quite a difficult thing to do. And when you start to talking about building data platforms for all sorts of wonderful reasons for organizations to modernize the way that they consume the data internally, there's loads of challenges around source systems, the age of those systems, the integration with those systems, the fact that organizations have not just got one system that you're pulling from. In some cases it's a minimum of 4, really. In some cases it's tens, if not hundreds of systems where customer data might lie. If you kind of take a look at A&S, you may have marketing automate, through from sales, to which we use Dynamics, through to our back-end ITSM systems, service management systems, all the way through to financing and fundamentally into systems like Sage and everything else. There is fundamentally a significant amount of systems, even in a business like ours with 300 people, that customer data may be stored, and somewhere in that, I still don't think enough people or enough organizations take this seriously enough on how much value there is in some of that data, because we're yet to really do a data project in the last couple of years that hasn't harnessed value when you modernize the way in which it's consumed. So some of those complexities are that, then the integration time, the engineering required to take all that data and try and match it, and the complex data joins and the fuzzy logic and everything else that goes with making sure that Andy Barrow is Andy Barrow and I am a CTO, and these are the systems that I use, and this is my behavior, and this is what I like, and you name it. And if you kind of look at us from an A&S perspective, working in B2B, we typically have to touch probably anywhere between 7 and 11 people at a customer to be able to transact with them. It's slightly different than the consumer that's maybe just making a decision themselves. But for us, it can be anywhere between 7 and at least 11 people that we've got to engage with, in some cases influence, and build a data profile around. So actually we can market the correct content to them, and we can actually be relevant to them. And it's interesting because that relevance in the last few days has significantly changed. We've been doing some surveys out to the customer base on how do you want to be contacted over the coming weeks and months, and it's changed significantly to what we had before. I think then if you kind of look at some of the more complex things, so you're starting to see now, to build a machine learning cluster a number of years ago, would take a significant amount of engineering resource. It would take a lot of integration time and complexity. And now the machine learning services have been commoditized in such a way where, some of the services in Azure specifically, they cost pennies to run and get some insights out of. But organizations are now building a machine learning model based on that data that they've currently got. And then the market's changing around them. So by the time you've actually built a machine learning model to allow you to do some prediction, the market's changed. And the last 2 or 3 weeks has been a significant sort of case study of that, if you will, that, you need a more agile way of making sure that those kind of models are changing with currency fluctuations, consumer demand, business demand, different markets, the price of certain commodities, and it's hard to build a system with all those components and complexities that's embedded with artificial intelligence and actually make it accurate without a significant amount of engineering resource. So what you've kind of found in the last couple of years really is this sort of growth of a new market called the customer data platform, which effectively is known as CDP. At the end of 2019 last year, it was currently at a $1 billion market and growing significantly, 70% year on year. So this is basically almost a subset of CRM, if you will, of a system which effectively focuses completely around the entity of the customer. Now, Donna will go into this a little bit shortly, but some people think, well, what is that doing different to a CRM? And you'll see some highlights, some massive changes of what you get out of a CDP to what a CRM does. But a significant amount of customers now are looking to deploy customer data platforms to completely redefine and build customer-centric processes around everything from when you first contact a customer, from where customer first contacts you, all the way through sales to cross upsell, content recommendations, and all the way through to the back end. And actually redefining that as a process is incredibly valuable for so many organizations that actually want to re-engineer their business for the 2020 and beyond era, where actually the customer is king and the retention and growth of that customer, maybe the upsell and cross-sell opportunities are absolutely everything, certainly in an age where we have so much competition now from startups. You've got a very little barrier to entry and actually very little legacy in old systems to maintain. So really, what this sort of takes us into is a new era of a high growth market that is effectively the customer data platform, which allows us to build those customer-centric processes. So I suppose, Donna, I'm going to throw the ball to you, and you're going to give us a bit more about what is it. You're going to show us a demo, and you're going to talk us through Microsoft's answer to this problem, to the CDP growth, which effectively is D365 Customer Insights. So take it away. I think just a quick one as well. If anyone's got any questions, I think we can do them at the end, absolutely, but bang them in the chat, and we'll try and get those answered for you. So over to Donna.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. Yep. So Dynamics 365 Customer Insights. What is it? So as Andy said, it's a customer data platform. And effectively, it's a pre-packaged tool from Microsoft that aims to give organizations a way of seeing all of their data from all of their different systems, consolidating it into one customer profile so that you can see a customer's touch points across your entire organization and across your entire brand. So it's a way of better understanding your customer, of seeing all of their information in one place, but then being able to apply insights to that information and then be able to use that throughout your business processes to deliver focused and targeted campaigns, focused and targeted customer services. So just to be clear, it's not a system where all of your customer transactions happen. Your transactions continue to happen in all of those different systems, but what Customer Insights does is it receives all of that data into one single data source effectively, and then it applies AI to that data to create a consolidated profile that gives you a 360-degree view of your customer. So the thing that we get asked frequently when we talk about Customer Insights is, how is it different to Power BI? How is it different to CRM? So as I said just now, the transactions continue to take place in all of those different systems, and the data is pulled through into a common data service on the Power Platform. So your CRM systems are typically geared towards, sales forecasting. They're geared around an opportunity or a deal or a customer service issue, customer service case. Power BI is more generic. It's looking at generic data and tying different data sets together. But Customer Insights is very much focused around your customer data, which is why it falls under this customer data platform solution. And as I mentioned just now, what happens is you effectively map all of your data so that it comes into Customer Insights, and then Customer Insights applies AI to those customer records, and it identifies matches. So even where there aren't any keys or the keys aren't very obvious, it uses AI to identify where those records match, and it creates matched pairs, which you can then use to create this consolidated profile. So the great thing about it, obviously, is that it stores all the data in the common data service. So once you get your data into Customer Insights, it's then sitting on the Power Platform in the common data service. And what that means is you can then begin to normalize that data and use it in other applications. So if you are an existing Dynamics customer and you're using the sales capability or the customer service capability or any one of the other business apps, you immediately have access to that data that you've brought in from those external systems, and you can use that data within those apps. But what you can also do is you can actually create your own apps. So you can start to build your own apps using that data that's been brought in. It then includes some machine learning models. So once you've got the data in and you've gone through the process of mapping and merging your data, you can use UI, the user interface, to create measures and KPIs. So effectively, you can identify KPIs, you can identify key metrics about your customers. But the great thing is that you can then extend the functionality and apply intelligence to that data. So you can actually use custom machine learning modules from the Azure Machine Learning Studio. So you can really start to gain some proper insights into what your customers are doing and what their touch points are and what their timeline is with you. Customer Insights also includes segmentation, so it allows you to create static and dynamic segments. So it's effectively a way of targeting your customer data so that you can focus sales campaigns, customer service, support, marketing campaigns against those targeted groups of customers. And the other thing about it is that it includes pre-built controls. So you've got the app that's on your common data service that becomes available to your other Dynamics apps. There are also a number of pre-built controls, so you can very quickly show your Customer Insights data within your customer form in Dynamics Customer Service, for example. And again, it's using this very intuitive UI. So as Andy mentioned earlier, if you start to build this all using traditional tools, it's really complex and it's really difficult, and a typical user wouldn't be able to do it. But with Customer Insights, it's all pre-packaged and made very easy for any kind of user, especially marketeers, to actually come in and ingest that data, create the segments, create the KPIs, and then use that data to gain some real insights. So who is it good for? So really, it's good for anyone who wants to get a 360-degree view of the customer. So anyone who's got customer data in lots of different systems, who wants to get a consolidated view of what their customers are doing, this is an ideal solution. But typically what we've seen is that normally includes companies who've got lots of business units, lots of divisions, companies who are selling to lots of different types of customers, or who've got lots of different sales channels. As I said, companies got lots of different systems, but also just anyone who wants to improve customer satisfaction and their customers' experience with them. So we've got one customer that we're working with at the moment. They've got lots of different sales channels and lots of different ways to market to their consumers. So they've got a physical shop, but they've also got an online store. The problem is that those two different kind of teams use different back-end systems. So when they're selling to customers online, they've got no visibility of whether a customer has actually been into one of their physical stores. So they can't reconcile that customer and they can't really see what that customer is spending with them. So those are the kind of problems that Customer Insights really helps address. So with that, what I'll do is I will switch into the solution now and give you a quick overview. So this is Customer Insights. When you come to the home page, the first thing you'll see is any measures or segments that you've created. So what I've got here is I've got some insights which are showing me any KPIs or key measures that I've created. So in this demo environment, for example, I can see straight away the average online spend per customer. Some additional charts here, and this is enrichment. So this is additional information that is pulled from Microsoft Graph, and this is basically helping you get insights into your customers and their affinities against specific brands or specific interests. This is brand new functionality in Customer Insights that's being launched in the UK in April. So not only are you analysing all of your customer data, but now Customer Insights is applying enrichment data onto that to give you some predictive models as well. And then I can also see my segments at the bottom. So I can see, customers with open cases or the average spend, high churn. So any segments that I've created are available here. You've also got some links to some help files as well and some documentation, but that's just showing you some kind of key KPIs and some key highlights across your data. So let's go and have a look at what it looks like once you've actually ingested all of your customer data. So over on the left-hand side, we can go into our customer area. Now this is where we can see our final unified customer profile card. So what this will show us, if I just drill into one of these, this is my final unified profile view. So what this is going to show me is my demographic information and my timeline data, any KPIs, measures, and any segments that I've created. But immediately you can see here that I'm pulling data in from different systems. So I can see all the point of sale purchases. I can see a measure that's showing me the average web purchase versus their average store purchase. I can see their lifetime spend with me. I can see their loyalty information. So this is information coming from lots of different data sources that is being consolidated into one customer form. And that's what Customer Insights gives you. But in order to do that, you need to set up your data. So you need to ingest your data and bring all of your data in from your different data sources. So in order to do that, we need to start over on the left in the data section. So if I open that up, the first thing to do is to pull in your data sources. So here you can see I've got a number of different data sources. Now I can add a new data source. And now if I just give my data source a name, so if we imagine we're bringing it in from our contracts database, it's at this point that you will see all of the out-of-the-box connectors that are available. So Microsoft have made available a number of different connectors and they're continually adding to the list. Sorry, it's just taking a little while to load in true demo style. There we go. So these are all the current standard data connectors that are available. So you can import from CSV, you can connect to SQL Server databases, you can connect to Salesforce, Exchange, you can connect to your Common Data Service. So these are the standard connectors available. Microsoft are continually adding to these. But if you need to connect some data and there isn't a connector available at the moment, what you could also do is just export the data from your system into a CSV and bring it in from a CSV file. So effectively what you do is you go through and you create your connector and you connect to your data source. So let me just jump back to my data sources and then we can go and have a look at one of them. So if we go and look at the loyalty scheme data that I've pulled through into my system, once we connect our data source, we can then see the data here. So we've got all of the columns that exist in that particular entity. So when you bring the data in, you can save your query name. You can then do things like format the data. So, change dates of birth to date formats and, change the data to email formats. So you can go through and kind of tidy up that data. And then when you click on next, it will actually create an entity within Customer Insights. So over on the left-hand side, if I look at my entities, what's happened is when I've brought my data sources in, it's then gone and created an entity for each of those different pieces of data. Now, an entity effectively is just a record type. So it's just a data set that Customer Insights uses. And really, once you've got your data into an entity, it then can be used by any of the capabilities within the Power Platform. Once you've created your entities, you can then create the relationships between them. So over on the left-hand side, you can now go and create relationships between your entities. So again, if we go and look at the loyalty one here, so you can see that I've actually created a relationship between my POS purchases and my loyalty customers. So I said that for each, there's a many-to-one relationship or a one-to-many for each of my loyalty customers can have multiple point-of-sale purchases. And the unique field that we're mapping against there is the loyalty ID. Brought the data in, entities, and then we've created relationships between those entities. What we then do is we then go through the unification process. Now, this is really where all the magic starts to happen within Customer Insights. So the data unification process is kind of split into three different phases. There's the map, match, merge processes. Mapping process is the first process you need to go through, and really what you're trying to do here is identify which entities you can combine and match. And so here I've got the entities that I'm bringing in. You can see that if I go to loyalty customers again, at this point I can say, right, this is my entity, and now I can go in and choose all of the different attributes that I want to include from that entity. So you'll have a list of all of the fields on that entity, and you can go through and select the ones that you want to include. Once you've selected your attributes from your entity, you then need to go and identify what your primary key is. So at that point, you can identify your primary key. So you would do that for each of your entities. And then once you've done that, you save those changes and you move on to the match stage. So at the match stage of the process, this is really where you can learn how to kind of evaluate the quality of your match pairs and really how to improve those matches. So when I come in here, I can see immediately after it's run the match process, how many unique customers I've got and how many records it's matched. And we can then start to look down here, all of the matching that has happened. So if I open up loyalty customers again, let's just scroll down. So what you're able to do when you create the matching is to create some matching rules. So down here, I've got one rule. And if I show you that, effectively what I've done is I've said, right, I've got a matching rule, and my matching rule includes two conditions. The first condition is matching the full name field from the e-commerce contacts, and it's matching against the full name field in my loyalty customers entity. So it's matching those two fields against each other in each of those entities. And what I can also do is I can choose how precise that match needs to be. Now, because that's matching on a name, I don't want to be too precise with that because people can spell names very differently and put them in different formats. So I left that precision quite low. However, I've then added a secondary condition. So I'm not only matching against the full name, I'm also matching against the email ID in those entities as well. And this time I've set that precision to be high because, you know, the email ID is generally fixed and will always be the same. So I can have a high precision match there. So in order to create my match, I build my rules, I set my precision, and really it's at that point that Customer Insights will then go through and start looking at all of those different data points and those different data sources and the entities that you've created, and it will create those matches. And then what I can see is I can get a preview of what it's matched together with the kind of the score of how well it has matched it. So a lot of them are 100%, some of them are slightly lower, where it's less sure that that's definitely the right record. But you can go through there and see how your matches have scored. And then you'll see your unique customers, how many unique customers it's found and how many records it's matched. And then the final stage in the process is the merge stage. And really the objective of this stage is to reconcile any conflicts that you found during that matching. So for example, if you do have, you know, a full name that the format's slightly different in different systems, it's really where you can go through attribute by attribute just to correct any of those conflicts. So, you know, again, telephone number, for example, it might be formatted slightly differently in one system to how it's formatted in another. So it's really a case of just going through and identifying any conflicts and just flagging which is the correct one and resolving those conflicts. So once you've resolved all of your conflicts, you've done the merging, you save that and run that, and then Customer Insights will create your consolidated customer profile card, which is what you can see here. And really, once you've done that, it's at that point that you can then start to create your segments and your measures and apply intelligence to that data. So if we go over to segments, so segments, a segment is really a filter or a query. So if any of you have ever used any of the marketing capability in Dynamics, you'll know that you can create marketing lists. This is kind of the same thing, but what you're able to do is create a static segment or a dynamic segment. So static segment is where you're querying on something that doesn't really change. Dynamic is when your query could constantly be changing. So what you can do is create a segment here that effectively allows you to target a group of customers based on demographic or behavioural information or transactional information as well. So what we can do is we can create a new segment, choose whether we want it to be dynamic or static at that point. Let's go and have a look at my summer promo. So here you can see the query that I've built for this segment. So effectively what I'm looking at here is I'm looking for any customers whose average store purchase is greater than 113, but where their date of birth falls between these two ranges. So I'm looking for a very specific demographic based on their age and how much money they've spent with us so far. So you can create your segments. And then once you've created your segments, you can then view the members of that segment. So view all of the results within that segment. So down at the bottom here, I can see all the people who were captured within that segment. And I've also got a trend chart. So you can actually see a trend and you can see for each point within that chart what the membership size of that segment was. We can then create measures. So a measure is effectively a key performance indicator. So this is something that's reflecting the performance and the health of specific business areas. And there are 3 different types of measures that you can create. You can create a customer attribute, and that's looking at a single field for a customer. So it might be a field that reflects a score or a value or a status. You can create a customer measure. So this is going to give you insights on customer behavior and enable you to break that down by selected dimensions. And then you can create business measures. So these are measures that track your business performance and the health of your business. So if we have a look at one of the measures that I've already created. You can see here that, again, what you can do is create your measure and add different definitions and variables in here, and you've got different functions, so you can do the average, the count, the sum, and you can choose which entity you want to build your measure on, which field you want to base it on, and then Customer Insights will create that KPI for you. Then the final area to show you is the intelligence area. So this is where this is in preview at the moment. So this is where you'll be able to do predictions. So as you can see here, Customer Insights will allow you to predict missing fields or missing values in a field. And as I mentioned earlier, you can apply custom machine learning models as well. So once you've created your customer profile, you can then start to build some machine learning models that you can apply to that data in order to gain some specific insights into that data. There's a full admin area as well. So this is really where you can kind of manage all of the permissions, all of the security and the schedule for refreshing all of this data. So that's all managed within the admin area. But what I wanted to show you is how you can use this data elsewhere. So it's great. It's amazing that we've got these consolidated customer cards. We've got a 360-degree view of our customer within Customer Insights. But the power of doing this on the Power Platform is that you can then reuse this information elsewhere. So just as an example, I've got Dynamics open. So here in my Dynamics CRM hub, I've got a list of my active contacts. So if you're familiar with Dynamics, you'll be familiar with this concept of accounts and contacts. Here I've got a list of my active contacts. And now if I open up one of my contacts, you'll see that I've added some standard controls into my customer form that's pulling data from Customer Insights. So I'm pulling data directly from that consolidated customer profile to see the timeline of all of the interactions that customers had with us. I can also see the KPIs that I've created. I can see their average purchase, their lifetime spend, their loyalty points, and then also the demographic information and any segments that they belong to. So for example, I can see that this contact is a high value online customer. So very easily I can customize my Dynamics forms to pull in those Customer Insights controls and display that data within Dynamics. But what I can also do is I can display that data in Power BI. So again, if we're using Power BI, I can create a workspace that pulls through all of my Customer Insights data as well. So here we're looking at Customer Insights through Power BI. So what I can do is I can go and select a different customer, and you'll see that refreshes. And again, I've got my KPIs, I've got my enrichment data, I've got my timeline, and I've got my demographic and my segment information as well. And then obviously, as you probably know, on the Power Platform, you can create your own custom apps. So here I've got an app that's been created for Contoso Coffee. The objective of this app is that it will be used in a retail store. So whenever anyone goes into Contoso's retail store, they will be able to interact with one of the customer service agents in the store, and they'll also be able to check in to the store to show that they've actually visited. So what we can do here in the app, very simple, customer search. So if I search for Lorinda, so if we imagine Lorinda's come into the store, I can quickly look up her name. I can see key activities and interactions that she's had with us. I can see how much she's spent with us on average, how many reward points she has in her loyalty scheme. I can see she's a high value customer. And also I can see some recommendations. So I know that when I'm speaking to Lorinda, I should be recommending her to sign up for a mobile app, and I should be recommending the latest coffee machine. And what I've also got within my app is the ability to do this customer check-in. So when I do speak to Lorinda, I can capture here the conversation that we had and whether I made those recommendations to her. So that will then go back and update my customer data. So the next time she comes into the store, we'll have a record of that information as well. So hopefully you can see how Customer Insights really helps you eliminate your data silos, how it enriches your audience information, and how it helps you drive personalized engagement across the channels. Sorry, I'm just going to next slide. So Customer Insights allows you to, automate your customer-centric processes based on customizable profiles, business measures, and segments, and really enables you to build some line of business applications that use that information to help you personalize those interactions with your customers. So just a quick word about the licensing and the way that it's licensed. Customer Insights costs $1,500 per tenant per month if you buy it on a standalone basis. And just to be clear, with Customer Insights, you don't have to be a Dynamics customer. You don't have to have Dynamics already. You can just buy Customer Insights sitting on the Power Platform. If you are a Dynamics customer and you have at least 20 sales users or 20 customer service users, then it's $1,000 per tenant per month. And that gives you 100,000 unified customer profiles, the ability to create up to 20 segments and KPIs, and 4 data refreshes per day. You can increase that capacity, and there aren't any minimum requirements around that. And we at ANS have created a Customer Insights Services package. So effectively, we know that this is really difficult to get this kind of thing set up. Data can be really complex. So what we've done is we've created a number of different packages to help get you started. So we have a basic package. So we'll do it like a 2-day workshop on Sunday. Then we can either help you do a quick enablement package or a proof of concept, or we can do a full deployment for you, depending on what your requirements are.
Wonderful.
So that's it from me. Andy, I don't know if we had any questions.
We did. I did a couple in the chat. I don't know if there's anybody that wants to, if anybody's got any further questions, obviously we can reach us. I'm andy.barrow@ansgroup.co.uk and you're Donna.Coxon. So more than happy to pick up questions after this. If there's any more, we can leave the chat open for 5 minutes. But other than that, Donna, I'd like to thank you very much for the time that went into the demo there. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much. I'd like to thank marketing for putting the webinar on in such a slick, nice way. And I'd like to thank all the customers who have very kindly given up half an hour of the time to be present on the webinar and listen to what we've got to say. So if there's anything more, I'd like to say thanks. Everybody stay safe, fit and healthy, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And yeah, we'll leave the webinar open for the next 5 minutes, but otherwise I wish you well. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.